You know what I'm talking about. That time of year. The annual performance review. It's this cornerstone of corporate life, almost as predictable as, I don't know, bad office coffee. And it's supposed to be this great tool for growth, for alignment, but for most of us, it just feels like something you have to get through. So let's really dig into why this whole process is so fundamentally broken.
Let's just kick things off with a pretty wild number. Research shows that a full 95% of managers are not satisfied with their own company's performance review process. Just let that sink in for a second. The very people who are supposed to be driving the system, they don't even believe in it.
And yeah, that brings us to the big question, right? If the managers hate them, the employees dread them, and even HR departments are questioning the data they get, why on earth is this thing still everywhere? Well, the answer is a fascinating paradox, and it's all tangled up in psychology, economics, and honestly, just some really bad corporate habits.
To really understand why these reviews fail so spectacularly, we have to start inside our own heads. Because the first problem, it isn't the paperwork or the software, nope. It's with the basic wiring of the human brain and how we are built to react to judgment.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting. We like to think these ratings are objective, right? Well, a massive study found that 62% of an employee's rating has nothing to do with how they actually performed. It's all about the manager's own biases, their own personal tendencies. Your actual work, that's only about 21% of the score. Your review is literally 3 times more about your boss than it is about you.
And this all happens because our brains are designed to take shortcuts. You've got things like the halo effect, where one thing you do well makes your boss think everything you do is great. Or the opposite, the horns effect. Then there's recency bias, where the only thing that matters is what you did in the last few weeks. Oh, and similarity bias, where we just naturally like people who are like us. And look, these aren't signs of a bad manager. This is just how the human brain works. We are systematically terrible at judging other people accurately.
But it gets even deeper than that on a biological level. When you sit down for that review, your brain basically treats it as a social threat. It's like you're being judged by the tribe and you might get kicked out. And this can trigger something called an amygdala hijack. Your brain's ancient survival center just takes over, getting you ready to either fight back or run away.
And here is the direct result of that. When your brain is in that threat state, the rational, learning part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, it just goes offline. You get defensive, you shut down, and you are physically incapable of taking in new information or learning. That constructive criticism your manager is trying to give you, it's literally being blocked by your own survival instincts. So the whole setup of a traditional review is neurologically designed to prevent the very thing it's supposed to do, inspire growth.
Okay, so the damage isn't just psychological. When you zoom out from one person's brain to the entire company, the costs of this broken system become absolutely astronomical. Let's start with just time. The average manager spends 210 hours every single year on performance management stuff. That's more than 5 full work weeks. Think about that. 5 weeks they aren't spending on strategy or coaching or, actually leading.
Now, let's turn that lost time into cold, hard cash. For a big company, the annual productivity cost of just running these review cycles can get as high as $35 million. And remember, that's $35 million spent on a process that has almost zero connection to actual business results. It is a massive expense for absolutely no return.
But maybe the most toxic cost of all is cultural. This is especially true when companies use systems like stack ranking, sometimes called rank and yank, where you grade everyone on a curve and the bottom chunk gets fired. In an environment like that, as this quote shows, teamwork just dies. Why would you ever help your teammate get ahead when their win might actually push you into the bottom 10% and get you fired?
A system like this basically encourages the absolute worst human behaviors. You get people hoarding information instead of sharing it. You get managers who might hire weaker people just to make the rest of their team look better in comparison. And any sense of synergy or teamwork just evaporates. This is the kind of culture that crippled innovation at Microsoft for a decade and was a factor in the ethical implosion at Enron. It's seriously destructive.
So, if the brain science and the crazy financial costs weren't enough to make you rethink things, there's one more massive risk. The very tool that was designed to protect a company in court can actually become its biggest legal nightmare. Because these reviews are so inconsistent, so biased, and so subjective, they create a legal minefield. They can be used as evidence that a firing wasn't really about poor performance, but was just a cover for discrimination. A surprise bad review right after an employee complains about something? That looks an awful lot like illegal retaliation. And all that vague language like not a great culture fit, courts can see that as coded language for bias against someone's age or gender. So, here's the bottom line. That paper trail the company thought was a legal shield to justify firing someone? In a lawsuit, a good lawyer turns that shield into a sword. They'll use years of vague, glowing, or inconsistent reviews to completely tear apart the company's defense.
Okay, so the old model is a neurological, financial, cultural, and legal train wreck. Phew. The good news is there is a much better way. So let's look at what the alternatives are. Alternatives that focus on developing people instead of just judging them.
And look, the data is just crystal clear on this. When companies ditch the old way and switch to models that use continuous feedback and focus on coaching, the results are pretty dramatic. We're talking about way higher employee engagement, real boosts in productivity. This isn't just some feel-good, fluffy HR trend. It's a legitimate business strategy that works.
And this really just lays it all out, doesn't it? The old way is this high-cost, high-anxiety judgment day that actually pushes good people out the door. The new way is a low-cost, ongoing conversation that's all about growth, and it makes people want to stick around. In one company, after they got rid of the annual review, they saw a 36% drop in people quitting. That's huge.
So really, we're left with this one simple question. After seeing all the evidence, how these reviews fail our brains, torpedo our cultures, and drain our bank accounts, isn't it finally time to move past a system designed for judgment and embrace one that's actually designed for development? I think the answer is pretty obvious.